What if a real treasure map etched in copper listing tons of gold and silver has been sitting in front of historians for decades, yet no one can understand how to read it? Tonight, we're not just asking whether the treasure of the Copper Scroll is real, we're trying to solve why, after 2,000 years, no one has been able to find it. For centuries, treasure maps have lived in legends and myths drawn on parchment, guarded by curses and chased by dreamers. But in the middle of the 20th century, archaeologists uncovered something far more unsettling. Not a myth, not a legend, but a treasure map carved into copper. It didn't promise spiritual salvation. It promised gold, silver, sacred artifacts, and hidden vaults measured in tons. This document is known as the Copper Scroll, and unlike every other Dead Sea Scroll, it refuses to be understood. Imagine standing in a silent desert cave, the air thick with dust and centuries of abandonment. Around you lie fragments of ancient parchment, fragile, brittle, and barely surviving the weight of time. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls, texts that changed how we understand religion, history, and the ancient world. But among them was something no one expected to find. Something that didn't belong to the world of ink and skin. Something heavy, cold, green with corrosion. A scroll made not of parchment, but of copper. This is where the mystery truly begins. The Copper Scroll immediately defied every rule scholars thought they understood. Ancient texts were meant to be copied, preserved, and passed down. Parchment and papyrus allowed words to live on through reproduction, but copper? Copper doesn't invite copying, it resists change. It preserves a message in a way that feels deliberate, almost defiant. Whoever created this scroll did not expect it to be read casually. They expected it to endure destruction, fire, invasion, and time itself. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, this text wasn't hidden for spiritual reflection. It wasn't a prayer, a law, or a prophecy. It was an inventory. When scholars finally managed to read it, after cutting it into strips because it was too fragile to unroll, the shock was immediate. Line after line listed locations, not verses, not teachings, locations. Each entry pointed toward hidden caches, buried chambers, sealed vaults, and concealed deposits. Gold, silver, sacred objects. Exact quantities were given with unsettling confidence, as if the writer had personally overseen every hiding place. This was not theology. This was logistics. The language itself adds to the strangeness. The Hebrew used in the Copper Scroll is rough, almost utilitarian, lacking the elegance found in other sacred texts. It reads like notes written under pressure, stripped of ornament, focused on function rather than beauty. This suggests urgency, a moment when precision mattered more than poetry, a moment when time was running out. And then there's the material itself. Copper was expensive, heavy, difficult to engrave. Choosing metal over parchment wasn't just unusual, it was a statement. The message was too important to trust to fragile skin or ink that could fade. The creator wanted this record to survive even if cities burned and people disappeared. The Copper Scroll feels less like a book and more like a last resort. Its existence forces a dangerous question into the open. Why would anyone go to such lengths to preserve a list of buried treasure? And why hide it among religious manuscripts? The scroll seems to exist between worlds, part sacred, part practical, part desperate. It doesn't ask to be believed. It simply declares what is hidden and where it was placed. From the moment it was identified, scholars realized this scroll was an anomaly. It refuses to fit neatly into religious history or archaeology. It doesn't behave like a myth. Myths exaggerate. This scroll calculates, myths inspire, this scroll instructs. And that is precisely what makes it so unsettling. Because if the Copper Scroll is real and everything about it suggests it was meant to be, then someone 2,000 years ago believed these treasures were worth preserving at all costs, even if no one ever came back to claim them. To understand why the Copper Scroll matters, you first have to understand what was about to be lost. In the ancient world, the Second Temple in Jerusalem was not just a religious building. It was the economic heart of Judea, a political symbol, and a vault that held generations of accumulated wealth. Pilgrims brought offerings from across the region. Kings donated gifts. Priests safeguarded sacred objects that were believed to connect heaven and earth. By the 1st century, the temple had become one of the richest institutions in the ancient world. When the copper scroll speaks of treasure, it is not referring to scattered coins or symbolic riches. It describes massive quantities of gold and silver, measured in talents, a unit so large that even a single entry represents a fortune beyond imagination. These were not personal savings. This was national wealth, wealth tied to ritual, power, and identity. The timing of the scroll is crucial. It was likely created during one of the most violent and chaotic periods in Jerusalem's history. Roman legions were closing in. Rebellion was collapsing. The temple, long thought to be protected by divine favor, was facing total destruction. Those responsible for guarding its treasures knew what was coming. Objects that, according to tradition, could not be allowed to fall into enemy possession. Hiding them wasn't about wealth alone. It was about preserving holiness. What makes this even more unsettling is how specific the scroll becomes. It doesn't say the treasure was hidden in a general region. It points to exact places, beneath staircases, beside cisterns, near tombs, inside caves, under stone markers. These are not poetic descriptions. They are practical instructions written for someone who already knew the landscape intimately. And yet, none of these treasures have ever been officially recovered. That fact alone fuels one of the greatest historical mysteries of the ancient world. If the Romans destroyed the temple and looted everything, why does this scroll exist? Roman historians recorded the spoils taken from Jerusalem in detail, including the famous menorah carried through the streets of Rome. But the amounts listed on the copper scroll far exceed what was documented. Where did the rest go? One possibility is that the treasures were successfully hidden before the city fell, scattered across the countryside in a desperate attempt to save them. Another theory suggests that only a small group of priests knew the locations, and they were killed or displaced before they could return. The knowledge died with them, leaving behind only this cryptic list. The idea that vast wealth connected to the Second Temple may still lie undiscovered challenges everything we think we know about the Roman victory. It suggests that the destruction of Jerusalem may not have been a total loss but an incomplete one, that something precious slipped through history's grasp. Every line of the copper scroll transforms the fall of the Second Temple from a closed chapter into an open wound. It forces us to consider that the greatest treasures of ancient Jerusalem didn't vanish in fire and blood, but were deliberately erased from sight, waiting for a future that never arrived. The copper scroll doesn't simply hide treasure beneath the earth, it hides meaning beneath language. At first glance, the text appears straightforward, almost disappointingly simple. Location after location is listed with brief descriptions, directions, and quantities. But the deeper scholars looked, the clearer it became that this scroll was never meant to be read easily, especially by outsiders. It is a puzzle disguised as a list. One of the greatest obstacles is the way directions are written. The scroll refers to landmarks that no longer exist, structures that were destroyed, renamed, or swallowed by time. Valleys have shifted. Cities have been rebuilt on top of themselves. Water systems collapsed and were repurposed. What once served as a clear reference point to an ancient reader is now invisible to us. The map exists, but the landscape it describes has vanished. Even the measurements themselves create confusion. The copper scroll uses units that were familiar 2,000 years ago but are now fiercely debated. Scholars argue over conversions, unsure whether the measurements refer to weight, volume, or something more symbolic. A small error in interpretation could mean the difference between digging in the right place and being hundreds of meters off target. In a terrain filled with caves, tombs, and ruins, that margin of error becomes fatal to any serious search. The language adds another layer of difficulty. The Hebrew used in the copper scroll is not polished or ceremonial. It feels abbreviated, almost coded. Words appear to be missing. Grammar is inconsistent. Some phrases seem incomplete, as if the writer assumed the reader already knew what was being referenced. This suggests the scroll may have been intended for a very limited audience, people already familiar with the hiding places, the terminology, and the context. Then there are the strange directional cues. Instead of using clear compass directions, the scroll often relies on relational descriptions. Next to this, beneath that, beside what was once there. These clues only work if the reader stands inside the ancient world. Remove them from that context, and the instructions collapse into ambiguity. Modern readers are left guessing what the second opening or the old washing place might have meant centuries ago. Some scholars believe the Copper Scroll may even contain deliberate misdirection. In a time of war and invasion, it would have been dangerous to create a document that could guide enemies straight to sacred wealth. Encoding the information intentionally or unintentionally would have added a layer of protection. Only those trained in the system, those who lived and worked around the temple, might have been able to decode it correctly. The physical condition of the scroll complicates things further. Because it was engraved on copper and buried for centuries, parts of the text are damaged, corroded, or missing entirely. Entire words are lost, letters blur together. In some cases, scholars must reconstruct meaning from fragments, guessing what was originally written. Each reconstruction introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is the enemy of precision. This is why expeditions based on the Copper Scroll repeatedly fail. It is not enough to believe the treasure exists. One must understand the code of a vanished world. The scroll assumes knowledge we no longer possess. It speaks in references that only made sense before the destruction of Jerusalem, before the Roman roads, before centuries of religious, political, and environmental change reshaped the land. The Copper Scroll doesn't guard its treasure with traps or curses, it guards it with time. Every year that passes increases the distance between modern readers and the reality the scroll describes. The puzzle grows harder not because the clues change, but because the world they belong to no longer exists. The Copper Scroll has fascinated treasure hunters, archaeologists, and historians for decades, yet it remains one of the most frustrating mysteries in history. Ever since it was first discovered in the Qumran caves in 1952, expeditions have been launched with the hope of uncovering the wealth it describes. Teams with maps, metal detectors, and modern technology have scoured the Judean desert, but each attempt seems to end in disappointment. The scroll, it seems, has built-in protections, not curses or traps, but the kind that history, time, and human error can enforce. From the very beginning, early searches were hampered by misunderstanding and overinterpretation. Scholars initially assumed the locations could be pinpointed using the clues in a literal sense. If it says under the hill beside the water, then it must be beneath that hill today, they reasoned. But landscapes shift. Rivers dry up, hills erode, caves collapse. A site that was obvious to someone 2,000 years ago can be entirely invisible today. What looks like a perfect spot might be miles from the actual location, or worse, the location may no longer exist at all. False discoveries added to the frustration. Occasionally, reports would surface claiming parts of the treasure had been found, a hoard of coins here, fragments of gold there, but upon closer examination, these finds were never conclusively linked to the Copper Scroll. Some were misidentifications, others hoaxes, and a few were simply coincidences, small stashes of valuable items unrelated to the temple treasures. These reports created waves of excitement in the academic and treasure-hunting communities, only to be followed by crushing disappointment when verification failed. Even serious expeditions backed by governments or universities faced enormous challenges. The terrain is harsh, unforgiving, and in many places dangerous. Desert heat, rugged cliffs, and deep ravines make thorough exploration nearly impossible without modern aerial surveys or extensive funding. Every wrong step in such a landscape can waste days or weeks of effort. Many archaeologists eventually came to realize that following the Copper Scroll is like chasing a phantom. The map is there, but the world it describes has vanished. Some theories suggest that previous searches failed not because the scroll was impossible, but because the clues were deliberately obscured. The creators may have expected that only those who truly understood the landscape and temple practices could recover the treasure. This raises the possibility that some parts of the treasure were found in secret long ago, never recorded and are already in private or hidden hands. If true, this would explain why some hunters encountered strange hints or small finds, but never the full hoards. Despite these failures, each attempt to decode or locate the treasure has added to our understanding of the Copper Scroll itself. Scholars have learned to read the text more accurately, to translate its units of measure, and to cross-reference its clues with historical geography. Metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and satellite imaging have allowed modern researchers to explore areas that were previously unreachable. Yet even with these tools, the scroll continues to elude discovery. It taunts explorers with the promise of untold riches while remaining a testament to the fact that time and history are the ultimate guardians. The story of failed searches also reveals something deeper about human fascination. Every failed expedition, every mistaken discovery, every rumor keeps the mystery alive. It's not just the treasure that captivates, it's the challenge itself. The idea that a world-class secret from 2,000 years ago could still be hiding, just beyond the reach of our knowledge, waiting for the right mind or the right moment to finally uncover it. Every great treasure has a story, but the Copper Scroll is different. It doesn't just list wealth, it hints at a desperate act, a decision made in the shadow of war and the collapse of a civilization. To understand who hid this treasure, we have to return to Jerusalem nearly 2,000 years ago, at a time when the city was teetering on the edge of catastrophe. The Second Temple, the spiritual heart of the Jewish people, stood as a symbol of faith, power, and tradition. But outside its walls, Roman legions advanced with brutal efficiency. The city's defenders knew that when the walls fell, the treasures of the temple would be looted, melted down, and paraded through Rome as trophies. The natural assumption might be that priests, the custodians of the temple's wealth, were the ones who created the Copper Scroll. They were the ones most familiar with the sacred objects, the offerings of the people, and the layout of the temple. These were men who understood that some items could never fall into enemy hands, items whose spiritual and cultural significance exceeded their monetary value. Gold, silver, ceremonial vessels, and religious artifacts were not just wealth, they were a link to God, to heritage, and to centuries of tradition. The Copper Scroll may have been their last desperate attempt to preserve it, a secret plan to hide the treasure until the time was safe. Yet there's another possibility. Jerusalem was not only a religious center, it was also a city of political tension and rebellion. Some historians argue that the treasure may have been hidden by factions outside the formal priesthood, perhaps rebels, or defenders who had access to certain caches but wanted to prevent them from falling into Roman hands. These could have been soldiers, scribes, or temple functionaries working under extreme pressure. Their knowledge of the city's geography, tombs, cisterns, and secret chambers would have allowed them to create a precise record without leaving obvious clues to outsiders. The Copper Scroll reads like a manual for insiders, someone who already knew the city intimately and could interpret cryptic references without hesitation. The question of why they hid the treasure is tied directly to the urgency of the time. The Romans were not merely an external threat, they represented the end of a way of life. Priests, scribes, and leaders would have known that if the temple fell, centuries of accumulated wealth, sacred objects, and national identity could be destroyed or taken. By hiding it, they weren't just protecting gold and silver, they were protecting the continuity of their religion and culture, a safeguard against total annihilation. Interestingly, the Copper Scroll itself implies organization and planning. The treasures are listed with precision, with measurements and locations that suggest systematic allocation rather than random hiding. Whoever created it wanted someone to find these items later, but only someone who could decipher the code, someone who understood the landscape and the context. This careful, methodical approach suggests a level of authority and knowledge consistent with those in power, those who understood the value of every object and the necessity of secrecy. Some theories even suggest that the treasure was hidden with the expectation that it would one day be used to rebuild or restore the temple, to serve a future generation, when the city could be reclaimed. Others speculate that certain treasures may have been removed entirely by insiders to prevent the Romans from acquiring them, leaving the Copper Scroll as a partial record or a decoy. In the end, the mystery of who hid the treasure and why remains tangled in the history of a city under siege, a people fighting to preserve their faith, and a world in which the difference between survival and destruction was measured not only in armies, but in secrets. Carefully buried beneath the stones of Jerusalem, the Copper Scroll is more than an artifact. It is a riddle that has persisted for nearly 2 millennia, and its very existence challenges everything we think we know about history, treasure, and human ambition. Unlike legends that fade into myth, this scroll is tangible. You can touch it, hold it, and read the etched letters that describe wealth so vast it boggles the mind. Yet despite the clarity of its text, the treasure it promises remains invisible, teasing explorers, scholars, and adventurers alike with the tantalizing possibility of discovery that has never been realized. One of the most haunting aspects of the scroll is how it intersects with history. It provides a direct link to a moment when the Second Temple stood as the centerpiece of Jerusalem, a time when the city was alive with ritual politics and daily life that we can only reconstruct through fragments of records and archaeology. The scroll suggests that as the Roman legions approached, someone took extraordinary measures to preserve what they could, hiding enormous caches of gold, silver, and sacred items. But that moment, frozen in time on copper, was not enough to ensure survival. The treasures vanished from the world, and the scroll became a silent witness to that disappearance. Every attempt to follow the scroll's instructions has highlighted how much has been lost to time. The landscape has changed. Ancient markers have disappeared, and some of the instructions are so cryptic that even experts struggle to interpret them. Archaeologists and treasure hunters have faced decades of frustration, often finding clues that lead nowhere or uncovering objects unrelated to the scroll's promises. Every failed expedition only deepens the mystery, reinforcing the idea that the Copper Scroll was not a simple guide but a complex puzzle, perhaps even designed to remain unsolved. The scroll also raises profound questions about human behavior and intent. Whoever created it must have anticipated a future when the treasure could be recovered. Yet for reasons we can only speculate about, that future never came to pass. Was the knowledge lost because those who understood it were killed or displaced? Did some of the treasure get recovered in secret and disappear into private hands? Or was it always meant to remain hidden, a test of fidelity and perseverance that only time could judge? These questions turn the scroll from a mere inventory into a philosophical enigma, one that challenges our understanding of history, trust, and secrecy. Modern technology has renewed hope for solving the puzzle. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, and advanced archaeological methods have allowed researchers to explore areas that were previously inaccessible. Yet even with these tools, the treasures remain elusive. The Copper Scroll continues to guard its secrets with patience, as if mocking every effort to unlock it. Each new discovery of ancient Jerusalem brings tantalizing hints, but nothing confirms the scroll's lists. Part of the fascination lies in the scroll's paradox. It is extraordinarily precise yet maddeningly vague, detailed yet indecipherable to anyone outside its original context. It presents the ultimate challenge to human curiosity, a real treasure, etched in indestructible metal, documented in exact terms, and yet entirely beyond reach. The Copper Scroll has outlasted empires, survived millennia of neglect, and resisted every attempt to decode it fully. It remains a mirror reflecting our desires, our persistence, and the eternal allure of the unknown. The unsolved nature of the Copper Scroll is what keeps it alive in the imagination. Scholars continue to study it, explorers continue to search for it, and the public continues to speculate about it. Its story is not just about treasure. It is about the enduring mystery of human ingenuity, desperation, and hope. Every generation that studies the scroll confronts the same question as the one that hid the treasure. Can we unlock the secrets left behind? Or are some truths meant to remain buried, waiting for a time that may never come after 2,000 years? The Copper Scroll remains one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. It is not just a list of gold, silver, and sacred artifacts. It is a window into a world on the brink of collapse, a world where desperation, faith, and ingenuity collided. The scroll challenges everything we think we know about treasure, secrecy, and human determination, leaving us with more questions than answers. From its unusual creation on copper to the cryptic instructions that have confounded explorers and scholars alike, the scroll reminds us that some mysteries are designed to endure.